You have questions, we have answers. This is Jane Miller.
And this is Ken Miller. Welcome to our show, all about real estate with Ken and Jane. Well, Jane, we've had a lot of requests for more shows on commercial real estate. So today, get your coffee ready, get your notebook out. We're gonna do we're gonna start Commercial Real Estate 101 to give our listeners an overview of the commercial real estate process. We've done a lot of talking about residential. There are similarities, but there also are differences. So we're going to take it slowly and, allow our listeners to sip their coffee and, absorb it. So I don't want to go too fast over the material. It's going to be a very general overview. As many of you may know, I'm a CCIM, a Certified Commercial Investment Member, which is a special designation that about 10% of the commercial real estate agents have. The first question is, a lot of people ask, do you need a particular license to do commercial real estate? And the answer to that, the general answer is no, but usually most commercial agents tend to specialize in commercial real estate, as opposed, likewise, residential agents tend to specialize in residential real estate, but there are some agents that are brave and venture into both fields, and it's like anything else. You can do with a real estate license, you can do any type of real estate, but you don't want to step into anything that you're not comfortable with or don't have the expertise to guide your clients.
Ken, that's very funny, right? You didn't say anything about a coffee before we started, and you let everybody else get up, get a coffee or whatever, or drive through. But poor me here didn't get a coffee ready. But anyway, I'll try to keep alert. As you mentioned, Ken, when you get a real estate license to practice a real estate business in New Jersey, that license itself is good enough for both commercial and residential. However, as you mentioned, generally it is the case, but each company may have their own rules. And, long time ago, 15 and a half years ago, supposedly. And when I started, I'm not mentioning my first brokerage, right? Because, I don't want to say anything which is later on can be, may not be, may not be appropriate. So what I can share is when I started 15 and a half years ago, and the rule or kind of guidelines for that particular brokerage was the new agent is normally have to learning, obviously, which is prudent. I think that's the best thing you can do to train, very nice training, very great training, train the agent to do the residential. However, if you reach a certain years or production level, and you can apply to get further training to do commercial. So luckily, that time I got the special approval because all those years in business, so on and so forth, definitely add more to my resume. So myself and my best buddy, Carolyn Barnes, two of us got the special approval, although we only been in business for 6 months. And that time, we're allowed to take the commercial program. Obviously, we have to pay out of our pocket. We have to go to head office. Obviously, my best buddy would take me. I can't drive there every
because
day.
You can't drive out of Central Jersey.
That's right.
You get lost in Central Jersey. So
I get lost going home, leave alone. If there's a roadblock, I get lost going home. So anyway, we took the training. I think it was quite incentive training. After that, we'll have to pass the test. And once we pass the test, and then we can do the commercial transaction. That's what, but once again, that's different broker might have different rule. I think at that time, certain broker may have, I remember the old time is the residential agent can do up to $500,000 commercial business. And anything more than that, they have to refer to the agent who had complete the commercial training. It's not your license to commercial, no such thing license, but certified, I would say, use the word loosely, qualified. So because we went through the training. So but you're right. You don't need another license to do it, but
you need the training
knowledge.
And expertise.
Yes.
So let's get back to the overview of commercial. So first of all, when we talk about commercial, what do we talk about? We talk about office type buildings, which could include professional, accounting, doctors, lawyers, insurance, real estate brokerage firms, anybody that needs office space. And office is anywhere people congregate to work together to complete a certain task. Of course, certainly during COVID, the office market has seen a downturn because of the remote working, the Zoom emphasis, and so it hasn't fully recovered yet, although some bigger companies, it was on the news, I think, announced that AT&T, at least on the CoStar website, that AT&T is pushing for the 5-day return to the 5-day work week. So there is a little push by some employers because they think it's healthy for people to congregate together, even though they can accomplish the meetings through Zoom. They feel that there's no substitute for the commonality of the people together physically in the same location.
Human touch.
Yeah. So that's exactly. So that's with the office. Then you've got retail, and retail is where you shop and you eat, you dine out. Anything in dry cleaners, convenience stores, bakeries, restaurants, liquor stores, outlet stores, retail, anything in strip malls, super malls, all that, anything that you're buying that's being sold, merchandise, food, specialty items, that's the retail. So these are all players in the commercial market. Another big player are industrial properties, warehouses, manufacturing facilities, R&D facilities, truck terminals. So that's another big factor as well. And then you have multifamily and commercial. Anything more than 5 units is considered a commercial. And why that's significant is because commercial, if it's viewed as commercial, they're subject to the commercial lending practices, which typically tend to be a little bit stricter and have more stringent terms. Like normally with commercial loans, there's a prepayment. You can't do an early payback like you can with residential. And secondly, the interest rates tend to be higher, maybe 1% on
it's
average
more risk.
higher. So there's more risk, right? So they view that, the lenders view that as commercial, and they view it as commercial because anything more than 5, it's considered an investment, which is a commercial deal. You're in it to make money as an investor on it.
1, 2 is making money, but I think that's just the government set the rule. You have to stop somewhere or start somewhere.
Right.
So they just put less than 4 is residential, but more than 5 is commercial. So that's just that's more. I think it's more to do with the government. If they could change to 3, they could change to 6. But they've said 5. That's my understanding, but I could be wrong here.
Yeah, and of course, everything in most towns is governed by zoning because zoning sets what type of establishment you can have and where you can have it. And zoning, the purpose for zoning laws are so you have an orderly distribution. You don't have a manufacturing facility located next to a residential home. You want to have an orderly distribution of the different types of businesses and communities. So for the welfare and the healthy growth and expansion of a community. So you have industrial areas, you have retail areas, you have office professional areas, you have residential areas. You have different classifications of zoning in residential, R1, R2, R3, based on the minimum lot size you need. So that's all. And then there are ways, if you're in the commercial field, there are ways, if it's not zoned for your particular use, you can apply through a process, which is not a guarantee, but it's called for a zoning variance. And that would involve a formal hearing before the zoning board where you would petition along with, with your proposed use and your layout and your traffic study and saying, hey, this use I feel could go is suitable here. And you would have you'd have the testimony of your attorney, like oftentimes a professional planner, a traffic consultant to show that that you would have little or no impact on the existing community. So that's where we're at with the zoning. And then you have other categories in commercial. You have hotels, mixed use properties we covered, industrial land, scrap yards, metal recycling facilities. That's all commercial. Special purpose things like amusement parks, parking lots, houses of worship, sports stadiums. It's all commercial. So you have all those specialty usage. So now we're going to talk about the next factor is key terminology in commercial. So commercial has, just like you get grades when you go to school, you get A's, you get B's, and hopefully you don't get too many C's.
What they say, you get a C, your president material.
That's right. You're a leader, right? And you're B, you work for somebody, and A, you're an academic professor.
Yeah,
right?
Professor. A is professor, B is a business leader, C is a president.
Right. Well, Jane, just like with homes, you have a way of rating the homes based on if they need work, fixer uppers or handyman specials, whatever nice way you word it, up to the ones that are mint condition, moved,
Yeah.
immaculate, state of the
Totally
art,
agree.
whatever. Well, commercially have a rating system too. It's adopted on websites like CoStar, where they give it. It's called Class A, B, and C. And as you might guess, Class A buildings include the state of the art, highest quality buildings. Normally, the newer ones, if you're talking about an office building, it's probably built within the last 15 years. It might have this spacious atrium, lobby, a lot of adequate parking, all modernized, at the top of the line amenities, more of a luxury building. If you're talking about a warehouse, an industrial building, for it to be a Class A warehouse, it's going to be, the ceiling height's going to be probably 32 or 40 feet.
Wow.
It's going to have multiple loading docks, state-of-the-art, equipment in it.
They make
industrial
it do the
equipment.
crayon
Right.
on the top, the fancy stuff.
Exactly. And then, so that gives you obviously, so Class A is top of the line, and then the next class is your Class B. Class B are usually buildings older than 15 years. They're not necessarily in disrepair, but they're not the top of the line because they're not the most modern. They may need some updates, some slight renovations. They tend to command the average rents. They're not in, but so that's a lot of the buildings. Pretty much a rule of thumb
Majority
is
of the building, I think.
older than
B.
15, 20 years, which you have a lot
Yeah.
of warehouses in that category, a lot of buildings in that category too.
But think about it, Ken. You just mentioned the A building, right? If the A building is 25 years old, okay, and 25 is built after 2000, so they had a lot of similar features like high ceiling, the skylight, and a lot of open space, in the entry level. A lot of things are already pretty much the same like today's taste. Is only 25 years, right?
Right, but then
And-
it may,
but-
but due to
but-
depreciation, it may not be.
But
yeah,
if you say if it's done 2000, just say, and then they update it, they keep very good maintenance, they paint, they do take care. I mean, maybe they would be able. They probably still can keep their A status, right?
I mean, as long as they keep up with the
Yeah.
Joneses in terms of what the newer buildings
Yeah.
are offering, and they're not
But
coming
at
out with
least-
anything crazy. Like, if
yeah.
you have, but most, I know with warehouses, it used to be that 28 feet, 32 feet was
Yeah,
considered the
but they
standard, but now they're
have
building them. Now they're building them 40 feet
Oh
high.
my God.
So they're going even higher because they have the stackability, because they have special equipment
Yes.
that can go higher. And when anybody buying or leasing a warehouse, the higher the better for most people, because they want to
Yes.
be able to stack as high, because
Yes.
spaces they're getting charged per square foot. So they want
Yeah.
to if they can maximize the storage, they can lessen the footprint, and
Yeah.
then
They
it's
go
it's a
higher.
business decision. Yeah.
That's right.
So that's
right.
important. All right, we're going to take a short break so everyone can get a refill on their coffee, and we'll be right back after these messages. Okay, welcome back. Let's continue our discussion on commercial buildings rating system. So we're talking about Class B. We covered that. So the last and the lowest class, as you might guess, is Class C. And these are buildings that are in need of repair. They command less than the market rents because they need significant work. It might be, you could have, for example, for a warehouse, it might be a warehouse with 12-foot or 15-foot ceilings built in the 1940s or 50s, which there are still quite a lot of those around. May not have a loading dock, or may have just one drive-in or something. Very
Functional,
outdated, almost
yeah.
doesn't
Yeah,
meet the
but-
modern amenities, but they're still marketable.
Yeah.
But they would command lesser. They're not going to command the newer rents. They might be $5 to $8 a square foot less than what the top base rent would be for a top A building.
But once again, just for our audience out there, right? If you operate a business, right? If you don't need a high ceiling, for instance, right? If your things is like pretty much 12, 8 or 12 is enough. And you can find some, even as you said, age-wise, the C-level building doesn't mean they need repair. Doesn't mean they really horrible. No, they could be well maintained. They could be nicely done, but only because the feature, right, the heights, just like
It's not just I'm kind of summarizing. There's a lot that goes in, but it's also it's the location also too. If it's not in the central business district, if it's located not near if it's based on the location, there's a rating factor that goes into that too.
It's very
it's-
much like a residential.
And usually
you know.
Class C or recognizes those that need repair, renovations. Maybe the HVAC system needs an overhaul. The roof might
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
need an overhaul. Or, the loading docks might be in disrepair. The levelers. So there's a
If
lot
you-
of
if
the
you say-
flooring could be pitted. It's there's
Yeah.
a lot of different things that go into it. The facilities, the offices, the restrooms. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but usually but that's the main thing to remember is you have A, B, and C, and obviously A are the top of the line and C are the lowest. So when you see that next to a rating, you know that
You know
kind of
the price
you have a
range.
general idea
Yeah.
what the condition is, and
Yes.
the location is a factor as well. And obviously, naturally, as we covered, Class C buildings yield below average rent.
Yes.
Although with warehouses, it's hard to believe because they're still commanding a pretty good rent compared to 5-7 years ago.
Yes.
And that's what we're going to cover. That's all due to the obviously the e-commerce demand, which erupted during the COVID period, but that caused the commercial warehouses to become almost like the retail distribution centers.
Yeah,
where
I'm
people,
shocked.
And that's so they basically crept up to command almost retail like rates
Yeah.
because people were used because they were being sought after as retail. So the e-commerce, they would just go to from the warehouse to the customer and bypass the retailers. So that's
Mm-hmm.
so that just erupted and the pricing just went up out of this roof.
It is really, I mean, when you listen to you mention that again. I mean, nowadays, if you order something online, they can be in the same day. I mean, once, right, I ordered something for my brother, and they were there within 4 hours. I couldn't believe it. I just ordered it within 4 hours. They arrived.
Yeah, and you're talking about Saturdays, Sundays.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's
crazy. It's fast.
Yeah. So talking about instant gratification. You're really, you're really experiencing that in this market.
I think the younger generation, I mean, they probably, not many of them have a patience, right? Used to be you have to do the letter, right? Yeah, I remember when I left China years back, I have to, I sit on the bus and go to school. I write a letter to my parents. And then you send it, take a long time,
And now with text, text, people expect, instant response.
Yeah,
if you don't get a response in an hour, somebody's going to text you, call you. There's so many ways, so many more efficient ways of communication, right? And now with the different the WeChat, the WhatsApp, now you have through the internet, you have the international communication.
Free. Yeah.
Which is so it's everything has evolved, just like with the construction industry, the technology. That's why the buildings and modernization has gone up and everything is just a different level now, right?
Yes,
what they're doing with the ceilings and the heights and increasing the height of the warehouses. So let's switch now to talk about the different lease types in commercial. So in residential, you have a lease and you have a fixed monthly rent. So in commercial, you have to be aware that there's different lease types you could encounter as a business owner. The first one is the simplest one. It's called a gross lease, and it's basically a fixed amount that the tenant pays the landlord on a monthly basis. And that includes everything. It'll include most likely it includes your utilities as well, unless you have a special meter. But it definitely includes the maintenance fees. It includes the property taxes. The landlord's paying everything. You pay a lump sum, let's say $3,000 a month, and that's all. You write a check to the landlord for that, and sometimes it even includes the utilities. And those are most common in office environments.
Yes.
If there's a lot of subtenants in a building, the landlord may cover the utilities because they don't have meters to divide everything, and they might just say, for this space, I want X amount of dollars. For that space, I want Y amount of dollars, and they just come up with a flat fee, and the landlord pays the heating, air conditioning, water, sewer, does the common area maintenance, the landscaping, snow removal. Well, it's like a worry-free idea. The tenant just pays that monthly rent. This is, again, most common. You see this in office settings. You don't see it too much in retail or industrial. They go to the other types, which we're going to cover.
Well, I think the main thing, before you go further with all the other type, for the listening out there, always double check. Don't assume gross rate including utility or everything, right? I mean, everything have an exception. So I would suggest you ask your agent or ask the owner to put everything in writing, what exactly is included, and also ask them upfront in writing what else you expect to pay addition to the rent. So in that way, you'll find out, right? Do I have to pay gas? Do I have to pay electricity? Do I pay water and sewer? Just confirm before you get into it. Yeah.
Yeah. And now the more common type we're going to talk about is called the net lease or the triple net lease. And this is a lease where the tenant pays a base rent amount, but in addition to that, they pay their pro rata share of the building's property tax, the building insurance, and the common area maintenance known as CAM. And CAM consists of snow removal costs, landscaping, common lighting, exterior lighting that's shared. That's for the common areas. Common area upkeeps, maybe the parking lot in the complex needs to be relined or repaved. The building might need to be painted, every 5 years or so. So all these common area anything related to that, they would pay their pro rata share of that in addition to the base rent. And usually there's a total amount that's calculated, the base rent plus the CAM. So the tenants in these situations will pay a specified monthly amount every month. They'll know that it's not going to alter, but then at the end of the year or whenever this landlord does a reconciliation, they may adjust the triple net costs will change, because if the property taxes go up for the building, then of course the tenant will that amount will be passed on to the tenant in adjustment, an increase.
Or you had many snows, you have a lot of snows removal, and the bill is going to be up. And just for audience out there, right? And long time ago, I did have someone I know, and very upset about the landlord. They rent a warehouse, and the camp was so high, and for one period, and because the landlord paint the building, and the tenant said the building is fine. Why did you paint building? I said to him, you have no say in it, right? This is a landlord want to keep, the building look okay to you, but they want to maintain the building. They want to make sure they don't want to have a problem and then do something, right? That's
preventive maintenance. That's why they call it maintenance. If they didn't, as opposed to a repair, if there was additional.
Yeah, there's a difference, right? And also, they do a lot of landscaping, make the place really pretty, and this is necessary.
And that's appreciated because the image of the building reflects the tenant, so it could, again, if it's a warehouse setting, they may not, but they still have customers going in and out.
But at the end of the day, that's exactly what I explained to him. He felt he has no say in what his property was not, and which company to hire. Did the landlord call to get the best? I said it's out of the landlord hired a management company. It's up to the professional management company. You have no say in. And but how do I know? I said, well, before you accept the place, you already got roughly the camp indication. So through the indication, if you found this indication camp number is slightly higher or a lot of higher than the other place, you look at it and you can make informed decision, right? So I mean that's how this particular landlord take care of the place. They want to make sure everything's.
There's not much in terms of negotiation. When you negotiate, there's no negotiable room with the triple net costs, which are really, because that's whatever it is, what it is. The only thing you can negotiate is the base rent, and that's right. That's your only tool, because it is what it is, and the landlord doesn't control it. Obviously, they don't control the amount of snow that Mother Nature is going to hit. They don't control the condition of the parking lot, the condition of the building, the building insurance, and obviously certainly not the property taxes either. So it is what it is with that. Let's do an example to see how this works with a warehouse space. And I promise I try to use the math to make it a little bit simple, so nobody needs a calculator or anything, and you can just follow it. You don't have to think with me.
Ken, please don't do that. If people driving, that'll be a problem. Stop
right. So let's say you have a warehouse, tenant leases a warehouse that's 10,000 square feet. It's within an overall warehouse that's 40,000 in total size. So they're leasing a quarter of the total space. The agreed terms are the base rent of $15 per square foot. And then they're paying the calculated triple net comes to $5 per square foot. I should say, as a sidebar, the way the rent with commercial spaces runs is the quoted amounts or the agreed amounts are per square foot per year. So in this example, the rent you would take the annual rent. These are quoted on an annual basis. So the total rent of 15 base rent plus 5 in triple net equals $20 per square foot per year. and 20 times 10,000 is 200,000. So that would be the 200,000. So that would be the rent, and then the monthly rent would be the 200,000 divided by 12, and that would be the fix for that whole year. And then it would be subject to go up. It would be subject to change because most likely in a commercial lease, the base rent will increase by a percentage every year, or it may not. But the triple net cost could vary most likely. But I want to explain further how the $5 per square foot was calculated. So, because in the example, let's say if the total costs for the property taxes and the building insurance and then the triple net for that whole 40,000 square foot building, let's say for the year were $200,000, then the landlord would say, well, I need you, tenant, let's call this tenant A, they're leasing a quarter of it. I need you to pay a quarter of the 200,000, which would be 50,000. And then you do everything in terms of per square foot. So 50,000 divided by 10,000 is $5 per square foot. That's how the triple net is calculated, right? And then you add that together to the base rent, and that gives you a total of what the annual rent is, and that multiplied by the square footage gives you the annual rent of 200,000, and then divided by 12 gives you the monthly rent.
Actually, for the audience listening out there, you don't have to worry about the math. The best thing is to hire a very experienced agent. So make sure they go through the number for you.
Right. But the most important thing to remember is if you're a retailer or an industrial space, you're always going to have to pay the base rent plus the triple net. So you're going to pay the landlord back for your pro rata share of the building taxes, the property insurance, and the common area maintenance. Those are the three nets. Those are the three things. And on top of that, you're going to have to pay the utilities for your use of the space. So that could add a few $100s at the very least to your overall budget. So you always have to budget for utilities. Don't forget utilities.
Yeah.
Right. So that's kind of the overview, how it works. With commercial, the last thing I'm going to cover in the remaining minute or so is a modified gross lease, and that is really just a hybrid lease. It's known as. That's a lease where there's maybe the tenant pays one of the nets. Maybe it's a lease where they pay a base rent plus the landlord says, okay, you know what, you pay your pro rata share of the property taxes. I'll cover the building insurance. Or another example might be the landlord says, I'll cover the property taxes and the building insurance, but you're going to pay me your pro rata share of the CAM, the common area maintenance charges. So that's in use today. In this market. That's called the hybrid lease or modified gross lease.
That one probably you can negotiate with the owner on what it is, what including, what's not.
Right.
But the triple net is not much to negotiate.
Yeah, and we'll continue. There's also another type which is kind of interesting, but I don't have time to get into it. So next week's show, we'll pick up with the percentage lease, which is a very interesting concept too. So unfortunately, I don't have time to give you the quiz on this one. So I'm going to let you go with an A, and we're out of time, I guess. So we will see everyone next week, and stay well.